All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, football fans of all ages, I am Beast Mike. You have now arrived in my train of thought. Let's talk about week one in what I'm going to call the Railway Recap, as some of you may have seen based off last year's videos. But anyway, it's the Railway Recap. Let's talk about week one and how we got here. And I'm going to start in a place I'm all too familiar with. It's a little bit of a walk away from NRG Stadium. It's the Eagles versus the Cowboys. And starting with the Jalen Carter incident with Dak Prescott, let's face it, Jalen Carter got young-bulled. He got outsmarted by the vet. Dak Prescott made him look kind of sort of foolish. And I'm a little surprised that as of this recording, we haven't really heard anything about what's going to happen with Jalen Carter. If anything, he should be suspended. And I'm a little shocked we haven't heard a word about it from the NFL. Maybe we'll hear about it today or tomorrow. Maybe I'll be able to cover it in my power rankings, but we'll see. But now to the game itself. And the offenses look great for a lot of it. CeeDee Lamb could not be covered by the Eagles' one main weakness, which is the boundary corners. They could not deal with CeeDee Lamb or George Pickens, for that matter. Now, Quinton Mitchell's good, but as the lead corner, he had no answers for CeeDee Lamb. Let's keep it honest here. Meanwhile, the Cowboys had minimal answers for stopping the run, even with Kenny Clark. Now, Clark did have a half sack, but it didn't have minimal answers to stop the run from Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley. Big plays from Jahan Dotson, a shocking lack of A.J. Brown, and the Eagles were winning this game despite not looking great on defense without Jalen Carter, for obvious reasons, and not being able to get too much pressure on Dak. Aside from the passing stuff, Javonte Williams had a very impressive game that had 2 tugs. Good stuff on his part. And then the rain happened. The rain happened for an hour. Much conversation about the Carter incident was had. And then the defenses, after the rain stopped, started to play pretty well. And the defenses looked efficient. And then CeeDee Lamb started dropping footballs, which was very unlike him for a guy who's elite and a guy making that kind of bread. Got to catch some of those. And especially the two on the series that really would have won Dallas the game, where he's behind the secondary, and that's a wrap if CeeDee Lamb catches either of those 2 passes. Now, yes, I kind of glossed over the Miles Sanders fumble, which was devastating right before the delay happened, and Dak Prescott saved a touchdown from Quinton Mitchell. But the fact that the Cowboys only lost by 4 is a little surprising. This was a very winnable game for Dallas, and Dallas had their chances with either the Sanders situation where he had the long run then fumble and somehow got caught by Zach Bond in between, and obviously the CeeDee Lamb drops at the very end. Again, a winnable game for Dallas that they'll be kicking themselves over. Eagles take your win and run. You didn't look great, but you were far from the team that looked the worst. I'll explain later. Justin Herbert's signature performance. This was a really good game for Herbert. He played tremendously well. The Chargers line held up relatively well without Rashawn Slater. Yes, the Chiefs got a couple of sacks in there because George Karlaftis is a very good emerging player, but they held up pretty well. Quentin Johnston actually has hands. He did drop a pass or 2, but okay. We're taking steps here. We're taking baby steps. He had a very good touchdown catch. Keenan Allen seemed to stabilize the Chargers receiving core as we kind of expected him to, because that's generally what he does. He just stabilizes the receiving cores that he is in. He's just that reliable. On whatever 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9 the Chargers needed to convert, it seemed like 13 was open and 13 was catching the ball. Yep, that was a very smart decision for the Chargers to bring him back into the fold. And Pat Mahomes made some plays. Travis Kelce looked rejuvenated. That was a very good game. Even after the punch, he looked very rejuvenated and very solid. I'm just surprised that after one of the sacks that Kansas City had gotten, it's 3rd and 18, and then they don't spy Herbert. Herbert runs for 20 plus. The game is over. The Chargers get a win. The Harrison Butker missed extra point really is a vital piece in this puzzle, of course. Never minding, kind of ignoring the fact of his end of half field goal that he kicked, or the Pat Mahomes, another one of those parallel to the ground throws that he made, or the fact that he got a couple of deep passes from Mahomes. Ignoring all of that, or the Chargers' lack of zone defense on Kelce, this was a really good signature win for the Chargers. And for Kansas City, in theory, they should be fine. But what if they start 0-2? It's very possible. I will talk about their next game tomorrow. Okay, let's rip this Band-Aid off. This was as bad of a performance as I've seen from a team in a long time. And in the case of the Dolphins, probably since 2019's week 1 or 2. To be honest, those two games kind of are interchangeable and intertwined because they were both kind of intertwined with each other, to be honest. That Dolphins team was really bad and somehow got 5 wins. This Dolphins team looks like it shouldn't get 5 wins or anywhere close to it. At least if they played like they did against the Colts in their other 16 games this season, they won't get anywhere close to 5 wins. That was as disastrous of a performance as you can get. And everyone's going to get this heat right now. You got, except for maybe Devon Achane. Achane, you may be exempt from this. Minka Fitzpatrick, you may also be exempt. Patrick Paul and Jonas Alvanea, you may also be exempt from this. You guys actually played relatively respectable games. So I'm not going to hate on y'all for this. The other 49 of you and the coaches, nah, you gotta wear this. Tua was awful. A lot of the offensive line was not very good aside from the left side of it. And maybe Aaron Brewer, because he didn't really do anything wrong either. The HN was fine. Obviously, HN was fine. And the defense, we thought the front seven was really good. They got overmatched by the Colts. We thought that the secondary was bad. And yeah, it was, because they didn't do anything relatively productive or relatively able to stop Daniel Jones, of all people. Indiana Jones in his first crusade as an Indianapolis Colt was a resounding success, as he didn't walk off the field without points being scored. That's saying something. Jonathan Taylor didn't even have that amazing of a game. He was just decent. Tyler Warren was good, and Lou Amarillo was amazing when it came to developing a defensive scheme. Xavier Howard also did his thing. He recovered a fumble, and all in all, this was as everything you could have asked for if you were a Colts fan to honor Jim Irsay, and everything that you could have wanted to throw away if you were a Dolphins fan, because this was just awful. So this was a painful performance for Miami and a really resounding one for the Colts. Is Indy good? Is Miami awful? I guess we'll find out more next week. And now to surprisingly the game of the 1 o'clock afternoon stint. Aaron Rodgers looked great, which is a sentence I really could not say when he was a New York Jet. He simply looked great. He didn't make too many mistakes, if any at all, to be honest, and bailed out a Steeler defense that somehow wasn't very good at all. And he did this against a Jet defense that was somehow not very good at all. The Jets made just enough mistakes. The Jets made just enough mistakes to allow Aaron Rodgers and the Steeler offense to capitalize and attack and make sure that they can put up as many points as they needed to. DK Metcalf, very impressive in his Steelers debut. The Steeler tight ends, no matter who it was, Jonathan Smith catching one of the touchdowns, he was also very impressive. They just played well and great on offense, which is not a sentence I normally say about the Steelers. That defense leaves a lot to be desired, of course, because Justin Fields was also great in this revenge game. And maybe this is a sign of things to come for Fields, or maybe he's finally found something and a system that caters to him. But he also looked great. There's no other way to say it. The Xavier Gipson fumble was gigantic and allowing the Steelers to get the go-ahead score at the very end. Chris Boswell being an elite kicker and bombing one from 60 somehow feels expected because he's just really, really good at what he does. And then Jalen Ramsey finishing off the Jets by destroying Garrett Wilson was also very impressive. So all in all, we learned that maybe the Steelers have a pulse on offense. They might not have a defense, but maybe they have a pulse on offense. I think we should talk about what happened in Foxborough too while we're taking the Acela train north in this case. And this was kind of ugly. Geno Smith and the Raiders were just kind of efficient, to be honest. They didn't do anything really dumb. Brock Bowers did his thing. Jacoby Myers did his thing. The Raiders as a whole were just not bad. And they kind of waited out New England until the Patriots started making mistakes in the second half. And that's effectively what happened here. Good work by the Raiders in doing so and making sure that New England just couldn't get far enough away. And then once the Raiders caught them, it was good to go. So in a sense, this was a very impressive performance on the road by the Raiders. Now, no one thinks they'll generally keep it up, but at the very least, it's a good sign and a good indicator that maybe the Raiders have some sort of pulse. this season. As for New England, like I've said many times, I just don't think their roster's good enough to compete yet. They have the quarterback, sure. They have the coach, sure. But they don't have a roster that's good enough, I don't think, to really compete. And I think they just need another year to really, truly figure it out. So, to recap the AFC East and its disaster, Miami looked bad. The Jets actually looked respectable in a loss. New England didn't look very good either. And New England and New York both lost at home. Baltimore, you have one job. Did they do it? I'll talk about it later. Getting good use out of this Acela train. So, going from Moynihan with the Jets game to Boston or Providence. I can probably go either one. We'll say Providence for this one. Going to the Patriots game, and now going back to Union Station in D.C., back down for the Commanders and the Giants. Spoiler alert, I have not taken the Acela trains yet, not the new ones. I do plan on doing it. It's probably going to be super dope. Anyway, let's talk about this Commander-Giants game, and let's talk about how bad the Giants offensive line still is. Sans Andrew Thomas, he's really good. But aside from him, that offensive line was no match for the Commanders' defense, and Russell Wilson looked cooked. There's no other way to say this. And there's also another question here. Why wasn't this more of a blowout than it actually was? I think that's something I kind of sort of need to know. Washington maybe played with their food. And, okay, they figured it out. They were able to put him away with the Debo touchdown on a nice jet sweep. But this felt like this should have been like 30-6 or 40-6 even, instead of just 21. That's a little disappointing on the Commander part, but Washington didn't need to do too much because the Giants weren't going to do anything, and we move forward here with Washington getting this win. Giants take your L and put Jackson Dart in before the end of September. I think that's best for everybody here. Now to the brothers' feline, as we're done with the Acela train. And Bryce Young, yikes. That was pretty bad and brutal in almost every sense. He looked like he was turning a corner at the end of last season, as we know. And as we found out, it was kind of sort of turning into a brick wall. And Jacksonville, unfortunately for Bryce Young, this brick wall hit back. And it hit a lot. And it hit hard. And the Jaguars, again, just didn't need to do too much. All they had to do was not crash the car. All Trevor Lawrence had to do was not self-destruct. And that's effectively what happened here. And there was no self-destruction. There was no crashing of car. Instead, there was simply Jacksonville handling their business as they needed to. This is a pretty rough loss for Carolina. And for Jacksonville's sake, it's a good way to start the season. It's far better than how they started last year. We're going to stay in the South. We're going to go to New Orleans. And to be honest, with the Saints, they didn't look that bad. Even in a loss, they didn't look bad. Arizona, little concerning that you didn't put them away sooner. And that New Orleans had a couple of opportunities to tie or to win, and they just couldn't find a way to do it. Maybe it's a matter of Spencer Rattler, just being Spencer Rattler, but the Saints had their opportunities, and it just felt like they just couldn't finish. They did admirable against Kyler Murray. They did admirable against Marvin Harrison, though he did have a couple of good catches. There was a really good deep throw that Murray made to Marvin Harrison Jr., would set up a score later on. But this was a performance by the Saints that was respectable. Again, the Saints have 16 games left where they can probably lose 14 of them and they'll be fine and get the first pick and a new quarterback. But still, this was an admirable performance and probably the way that this should go for the Saints, where if you tank and look admirable and respectable while tanking, I don't think anyone will mind or notice. Cardinals take your win and run, or in this case, fly. Speaking of flying, Atlanta, the Falcons. And what was a really fun game of the day in the NFC, I guess, for the 1 o'clock stint. This was a really fun battle with them in Tampa, as we probably expected it to be. This was kind of sort of mediocre to bad Baker for a lot of this game. This was what we needed to see from Penix to some extent, what we needed to see from Bijan Robinson, and what we expected to see from Bijan, to be honest, to some extent. We got good performances from Drake London, and then we got the real good rookie debut of Emeka Egbuka, who was, as advertised, and tremendous in this game. And those touchdown catches he had were big time, especially the second one. Clutch performance, especially after Atlanta kind of gave Tampa Bay some new life on that last drive by giving them the ball back with a lot of time left. Baker did his thing, got a little bit of help from some penalties from the Falcons, and ultimately it was a really great throw that ended up getting the go-ahead score and put them up by 3, leading into Atlanta's last drive. But then the Falcons go down the field, and everything's looking good. And then Younghoe Koo, who's normally a good kicker, hooks it to the right. Oof. This is a rough way to lose if you're Atlanta. But then again, it was also a Sunday, so it kind of happens, I guess. Now let's go to Ohio. And there's something that needs to be said, at least on my part. I picked Cleveland to win this game. If you saw my picks, I picked the Browns to win this. This was my upset of the week, if you will. And I kind of thought this because the Bengals usually never win week 1. Myles Garrett usually owns Joe Burrow. And the Bengals find a way to self-destruct and lose games like this. They kind of almost did, and almost actively wanted to. 3 straight plays, 3 straight sacks, 2 of them by Garrett. One of them almost was a safety, which would have kind of come in handy later on. But in any event, the Browns never really stayed away from the Bengals. The Bengals never could jump away and get away from Cleveland on the scoreboard. And that's exactly what Cleveland needed. Cleveland got what they needed with the short fields after the 3 straight sacks. And now it's a 36-yard kick, and all the Browns kicker has to do is bury it. They've got the lead, and then they can just unleash what kind of fury was left at Burrow. Except for the part that they missed the kick. Oh. And that was pretty much the last chance that Cleveland had to win this game and to effectively upset the Bengals and humiliate them once again. We've never really gotten anywhere closer. Yes, Flacco got the ball one more time, but he threw an NO at midfield and the game was over. And it's just a really painful loss in a season for the Browns where we expect a lot of painful losses. For Cincy, take your win and run back to your somewhat mediocre Skyline Chili and keep it moving. This game was kind of ugly between Denver and Tennessee. And this wasn't really ugly on the Titans' part. This was ugly on the Broncos' part. Bo Nix did not look good. He was not good and at times a disaster zone. 3 or 4 turnovers. It was miserable play by Bo Nix in general. But unfortunately for Tennessee, they just couldn't take advantage as much as they really needed to. It wasn't that Cam Ward was bad. Cam Ward did an admirable job in his first day and his first time playing. It's just that he didn't have enough with him to help save him. Nix did get a touchdown to Sutton, but it never really felt like Bo Nix was ready to take that sophomore jump, at least not yet. Denver is another case of take the win and run because they didn't look all that great, but that defense was outstanding and did just enough to make sure that Tennessee couldn't upset them. Again, Denver take your win and run. We're going to go even further west and go with the Rams and the Texans. So, yeah, trading away your best and Pro Bowl offensive lineman and Laramie Tunsil might not have been the best decision. Or at least not replacing him admirably might not have been the best decision. Stroud, yes, was sacked 3 times. It felt like more, and for CJ Stroud's case, it probably seemed like more with the beating that he was taking from those young Rams studs. It was not a really good look at all for Stroud and the offensive line, and their run game was at least okay, I guess. At least Nick Chubb was. But it just never felt like it should have for a competent team and a competent O-line. For the Rams' sake, congrats to getting past 60K Matt Stafford. Puka Nacua doing his thing, even with the blood. And Kyren Williams scoring a touchdown because, of course, Kyren Williams scored a touchdown. That's just what he does. That's just par for the course for Kyren Williams and the Rams. When he plays, he scores, and they generally win, which they did. And they basically did because of their defense, because their defense is sneaky good. I don't love the secondary still, but again, their defense is sneaky good. Rams, you did your thing. Texans, very concerned about your line because other teams are going to get wind of this, and it's probably not going to go well. The good news is the Niners did their thing and handled business against their arch rivals in Seattle. Defense was at A+. There was a lot of quality defensive play from both teams. Several NLs by Brock Purdy, which is also not great. And Sam Darnold, though he wasn't awful, wasn't what he needed to be at the very end. But we'll get to that. We also got to talk about how the Niners are already self-destructing. George Kittle got hurt, and he didn't come back after catching a touchdown pass. Brock Purdy's got a shoulder injury and a toe injury. We don't know if he's going to play against New Orleans now. So the Niners are already starting to crumble, and we didn't even get past week 1 yet. We barely got past that game. Yikes. San Francisco, this is not how this is supposed to go. In the case of Seattle, it's kind of disappointing that even with all this and Jackson Smith and Jigba playing relatively well, though he did have a fumble, which wasn't great, the Seahawks still couldn't finish the deal. They still couldn't handle business against a Niner team that is still kind of shambles because they just can't stay healthy. That's just how the Niners seem to operate. And my goodness, can they not kick? Jake Moody, I'm amazed he's employed by the Niners even still right now with the missed kicks, although one of them was blocked. And with the go-ahead touchdown that Purdy actually threw, I can't believe it wasn't picked. Like, we got to be honest here. This should have been picked off. I can't believe Tyreek Rowland or Witherspoon didn't get there. It didn't snatch that. That was a moon ball. And somehow it was not caught by a Seahawk. Absolutely stunning that this was not caught. And devastating loss for Seattle for tiebreaker purposes and for morale purposes. You probably should have won this game. So, do the Lions miss Ben Johnson? They might. Do they miss Aaron Glenn? They might. Nothing about Detroit looked good. Let's face it. They looked really out of sorts, out of sync, and completely flustered with this performance in Green Bay. The Packers were just a well-oiled machine pretty much from the start to the finish. Their defense caused a lot of havoc against Detroit and got home against Jared Goff repeatedly. Micah Parsons, yes, got the sack at the end, but it wasn't just him. Rashawn Gary got a piece. Lucas Van Ness got a piece. The Packer defense looked incredible against the Lions and pretty much locked down anybody not named Jahmyr Gibbs or Sam Laporta. They both had really good games. There was really not much that Goff and company could do against that Packer defense. And then you flip it to the offensive side, and you see no real resistance from the Lions defense. The Packers looked tremendous. Jordan Love looked good. They ran the ball well with Jacobs. The receivers got busy. Their tight ends got busy. The Packers O-line was basically a moving wall. And there was no answers from Detroit whatsoever in this game. This was a statement win for the Packers in a situation where the Lions have dominated them in Green Bay the last few years. This was a statement win for Green Bay that they needed in the worst way to kind of assert, maybe even reassert their dominance in the NFC North. And now let's get to the game of the year so far. And it may hold up as such because of how great this game was. It started as you would expect. Josh Allen, Buffalo got the ball first. Josh Allen did his thing. Easy tutty to start the proceedings. And we move. And then Derrick Henry took over and sent fools to the Shadow Realm. Bishop got sent there, and you can see the reaction on his face. You saw his expression after he got his soul taken by that stiff arm. He understood what was about to he understood what happened and the damage that was caused. Anyway, Baltimore continues to just mow down people with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson running the football. And they had 100-plus yards in the first half. Henry had 100-plus yards. They had 150 towards the first half with ease. It was a absolutely dominating performance by the Ravens on the ground, as Buffalo had no match for Lamar and Henry, the two future Hall of Famers. Then we mix in St. Flowers, who started to bloom in the Bills secondary. He was cooking and doing his thing very impressively. And an incredible one-handed catch by DeAndre Hopkins as well. And then the disrespectful hooligans, also known as Buffalo Bills fans, like trying to assault and attack Hopkins and Lamar, and then eventually Henry on Henry's second touchdown as he tried to throw something at Henry, and they almost got him as he crossed the goal line. And it's 40-25, and it's like, okay, this is over. All the AFC East can commiserate and celebrate each other's misery. Schadenfreude is a real word, by the way. And we can all be like, okay, we all got a loss, and we all move forward. And then Baltimore did the one thing that Baltimore always does. They make mistakes. They are the most talented team in the NFL, and then somehow the only team that seems to beat the Ravens are the Ravens. They find ways to crumble. They find ways to self-destruct. How do they do it this time? First, it was kind of a lucky bounce for the Bills as Keon Coleman caught a touchdown pass. Buffalo can't make two-point conversions. Fine, we move. And then Derrick Henry fumbles, which is like, oh, that doesn't normally happen. He fumbled. Buffalo recovered short field. Buffalo goes down short field. another tutty, another failed 2-point conversion. Okay, we move. Then the Ravens proceed. Okay, they've got the ball. They've got a few minutes left. You've had an incredible, unstoppable run game. Just running down Buffalo's throats one more time. You win the game, and you run out of Buffalo with the W. It's somehow 4th and 1, and you punt. You have a wrecking ball of a running back. You have an incredible mobile quarterback. And on 4th and 1, you can seal the game here, and you punt. This was all Buffalo needed. Josh Allen did the rest, and Allen made sure that he got the ball where he needed to handle the rest. And all Buffalo needed was to just hit their field goal with Matt Prater, and Matt Prater gets his welcome to Buffalo present, which is probably free wings for life as far as I could tell. He buries it. Buffalo wins a game where Baltimore gained 400 plus yards of offense and probably close to 200 yards rushing. They score 40 points and they lose. Yeah, Baltimore, you have no one else to blame but yourselves. You did this to yourselves. They ran for 238 yards, by the way. You did this to yourselves, Baltimore. Take your L and fly away in shame. Buffalo stole a game they had no business winning, and the Bills can lord over everybody else in the AFC East. If this division is as bad as it was last year, once again, it'll be over by Thanksgiving. And now we get back to the NFC North, and we take a flight from Buffalo to Chicago, or we kind of swim around Lake Michigan, I guess. In any event, and Lake Erie. In any event, we get to a tale of two games. The first 3 quarters, it felt like, okay, the Bears got this on lock. Caleb Williams looked respectable, and the Bears defense did what it was supposed to do against J.J. McCarthy in his first start. They absolutely bottled him up and suffocated him. It was not very good. And McCarthy threw a terrible pick 6 where he absolutely telegraphs the ball, and the route gets jumped and gets yoinked, and Wright takes it back to the crib. And at this point, we're laughing at J.J. McCarthy. We're laughing at the Vikings for drafting him and trading up for him, which they did. And we're like, okay, this is going to be fun. The Bears win the game. Ben Johnson looked respectable with Caleb on that first drive and not much else, but they got the job done. And then the fourth quarter happens. And then J.J. McCarthy suddenly becomes really good. It's like the second Randy Moss took over the Manning cast, everything flipped. Which is literally what happened. Moss takes over the Manning cast towards the end of the third quarter and basically is there for the entire fourth quarter, and it's absolute slaughterhouse from the Vikings. The Vikings basically marauded the Bears and used their skin for fur coats for the winner. It was absolutely insane how they took care of business. Justin Jefferson got a tutty and did some grittying. Aaron Jones continued his ownership of the Bears and scored another tutty. The J.J. McCarthy ran one in, as the Bears had no answers for any of the Vikings in the fourth quarter whatsoever on offense, and Caleb Williams couldn't do anything on his part to help kind of turn the tides back to Chicago. It was just not happening there. He almost threw a pick 6 to Andrew Van Ginkel, who reads screens like books. He is amazing at that. Long story short, in the fourth quarter, the Vikings ended up dominating it and ended up handling business on the road against Chicago. And now we got some more questions. Caleb, are you taking that step forward? Ben Johnson, are you doing enough for said step? And J.J. McCarthy, is he truly like that? Questions that we will need more answers to, but I think we're going to get them going forward. There you have it. There was week 1 of the 2025 NFL season, and my picks overall, I went 10-6. So not a bad way to start the season. Coming up tomorrow, power rankings. All 32 teams will be mentioned. There will be tier lists. There will be explanations for said tiers and how I came up with them. There will also be games of interest. I will mention 2 games in each tier that have my attention for better or for worse. That will be something I will sprinkle into every Power Rankings episode that you see. Anyway, the tiers in question, and whichever team will be 32 will be the first stop of my next train of thought.